We are going to keep going here. One more session here and then the break. So with that, I'm going to bring out Mark Silva, who's a regular face now out here. And the brands are definitely coming. I think that's appropriate now.
Playing liar's dice. I will test your truths now. So thank you for joining us for the big brand panel, and we'll just get right in and actually have going from Michael over to our right here. Go ahead and introduce yourself and your role at PepsiCo.
Sure. So my name's Michael Hammer. I'm actually the Director of Venture Capital Strategy for PepsiCo. And what that means is I sit inside of a venture capital fund and advise the fund on what PepsiCo is looking for from a long-term strategy, whether it's ingredient technologies, emerging brands, or emerging media that we should participate in. So I get a good chance to see a lot of early stuff and decide not only whether it's an investable proposition or whether or not it's a potential for partnership for PepsiCo to play with.
Great. Thanks. John?
I'm John Paluga. I'm the VP of Marketing for the Armor All and STP brands. The brands were owned by Clorox for over 10 years, and about a year and a half ago were purchased by a private equity investor. So I'm responsible for ramping up growth dramatically for these brands. And we've always been big proponents of using digital for a number of years. And we're just starting to really scratch the surface in terms of the social, local component of it. STP, I think, is a natural because of its connection to racing and NASCAR and car shows and things like that. So we're actively pushing for opportunities to grow in that space.
Great. And Fred, outside of socks that you don't wear here, could you give us a little bit more background on you, a little coverage on you?
Sure. My name is Fred Neal. I'm Vice President of CRM for the Home Depot. I'm responsible for all customer-facing communications and all the one-to-one activities cross-channel that we do.
Well, thanks for being here, guys. And Fred, a little bit about a program that had social local component to it, mobile perhaps, and so we get the whole solo-mo spectrum, and reach into popular culture because, as we know, when things become part of popular culture, can become a Super Bowl thing, it kind of happens. It's a happening moment for brands. Any thoughts on that for around the Home Depot?
Yeah, I'll just keep it more germane to what's been going on over the course of the last couple days and our participation in the Big Brand Hackathon. And one of the projects that we had done was on Ryobi Nation. And this is a fairly new community that we've created. And what this is, it's the Home Depot, it's really about awakening the doer in all of us. And Ryobi Nation is about customers who have purchased Ryobi product, and they're very passionate about the work that they do and how they can share across the community the projects that they've done, get people to vote on the projects, and really trying to get a lot more from an engagement perspective. So that's one real quick. Two is, again, on Garden Club that Mark had mentioned earlier, and that's really where you think about both social and local, because what happens here in San Francisco from a growing perspective relative to Atlanta, Chicago, the weather's different, the plants, people want to engage with people that understand what's going on in their right around their local community. So those are two things that we've done, and it's very important.
So you're saying that the locality couldn't be more relevant to your community, the folks that you come into the Home Depot?
Absolutely.
Yeah. Makes sense. If you were to plant something here in San Francisco in the fog belt, it wouldn't be the same as what I would do down in the peninsula. So
Right.
you really do have almost hyperclimates. You have some hyper-relevance from locality. And you were talking about the NASCAR fans. Does that have a locality to it as well, or the automotive in general enthusiast?
Absolutely. I mean, unlike some of the other consumer products brands that you have at Clorox, Armor All and STP are related to hobbies. Cars are a passion, they're a hobby for people, and so there's a number of events where people get together and share that passion. Car shows is certainly one of them. NASCAR and drag races and all kinds of other races is another. So being able to leverage Facebook, Twitter, particularly over mobile devices at these events is a great way for fans to kind of share that experience beyond just the people they came with. They can share with a broader group of people.
Cool. And speaking of fans and passion points, you were just at the U.S. Open. How did you survive 6 hours without your mobile phone?
It was frightening.
Yeah.
Very, very frightening. But it was actually great because the idea of this social atmosphere that was actually happening at the U.S. Open, but it was happening inside. But the minute you walked out of the gate, people just immediately got onto their phones and started, tweeting and calling and everything else. So you certainly wanted to be a part of that community.
From the personal to the more professional on the PepsiCo side, you guys have massive programs like the X Factor and others. Any ability to talk about some social local activations within the portfolio?
Yeah, there's a lot of different things that we do, and you're absolutely right. From Gatorade to Mountain Dew to Pepsi to Doritos, those kinds of things. We've integrated social local into so much of what we do. One of the things that I can talk about is with us and Gatorade, it's about kind of a map my fitness kind of a look. If I'm traveling or if I want to try out a new ride, then I can go out and find out the social aspect of, hey, share with me a new ride, help me know where I can go, or I can talk to my friends about what my performance was on that. On the other side of it, the Mountain Dew, let's talk about Green Label Art. Mountain Dew has its own label, and people can suggest for the brand actually what great bands that they've seen locally, and they can start to push those bands and create this kind of groundswell of popularity for a local band just on the social atmosphere of what they're seeing, just in their local community.
I heard Shiv and Frank Cooper talking recently from PepsiCo talking about, Shiv's the head of bottling digital, talking about how some of these interactions, you may have thought of them as an advertising program, but you were actually really interested in the back-end analytics. So an X Factor, when people provide a code or text into a code to unlock more X Factor platform content that's unique to them and original to them, you guys were actually seeing where they were checking in, what they were doing. You were finding, is that a strong market for us or not?
Yeah.
For instance, why did everything die in Atlanta for some reason?
Right,
What's going on there?
Well, I'm not going to talk about that.
Fair enough.
But at the same time, you're absolutely right. We actually use that data from a real-time perspective on what are the conversations, what's happening within a specific retail location, and we need to make sure that if we are getting ready to do an event or getting ready to follow one of our promotional activities, that we are fully loaded within the market to make sure that we have enough product on the floor or on the shelf. So, and how fast that product may be going, or at least how the sentiment of the consumer in that market may be changing. When we do the Dew games here in August here in San Francisco, are we able to take advantage of the social experience and the digital experience that everybody in the market is actually participating in, and actually are we able to then turn that into incremental sales from just making sure that we are turning the town green, so to speak?
Yeah, I'm going to actually reach a little bit back into your career there, all the way back to Dell not so long ago when you were head of CRM over there. You guys had, like Pepsi did, an amazing war room, and you guys were using that to actually change business, weren't you?
Yes, very much so.
I'm not asking you to give me any specifics, but could you just describe the program a little bit?
So from a social perspective, and you think about from what's going on locally, is obviously Dell is a national brand. So when you look at new product launches, you look at influencers across the product categories, what's going on out in the marketplace. They have a pretty robust listening lab where they're just keeping a good pulse on what's going on, and then how do you drive activation around that and create community around the globe, around particular product categories. How do you then activate that back through social CRM and through a lot of text mining of the data, bring that back to the customer database to then be able to activate across all of your marketing campaigns and messaging platforms.
And you guys were actually able to get a visibility to incremental sales as a benefit of actually having been deployed very locally and using the social platforms.
Yeah, absolutely. And that came from Michael on down. It was something that he was very passionate about, and he's very active in social and very active across all types of communities, and he's brought that down across the entire organization.
Well, so that's actually a good place to take the conversation, because when you think about how things get funded, and kind of the joke I was making before that sometimes a lot of these emerging platforms sit just beneath the contempt of every great strategist or CMO or C-suite. You've got someone who's actually really dialed in there and driving that. How do things get funded in your culture? Does it bubble up, or is it top down?
It's both. I think there's a convergence where you have good ideas that come from the bottom up, and they're always vetted and approved from the top down. You look at capital allocation and what those big ideas are, and obviously in line with the strategic roadmap of the organization to make sure that it's on point with where you're trying to take the brand.
And at the same time, you're participating in big brand hackathons where you've got CMOs and brand level people participating as well.
Yeah, and like you said earlier, for us, this is the first time that we've done this, and it's really focusing on the art of the possible. If you look at what we do inside of a $70 billion organization, there's a lot of bureaucracy and a lot of structure to be as successful as we are as a brand. And this gives us an opportunity to work with people outside of our four walls who are unconstrained in their way of thinking and are being very creative and bringing new, different ideas and being able to look at things that you could potentially commercialize. And at the same time, we have a value back to them, because what we're doing is teaching them something from a marketing perspective of the importance of brand and how they need to think about it and what they're doing from a hacking perspective. And it was interesting, the runner-up for the contest that we did, he talked about something new for him, that he had to think about color palettes, he had to think about logos, some of the things that you have to do to be on point with brand, because there are brand standards that we have to work with. And that gave him a different way of thinking about this, but it also, for us, it pushed us and gave us a different perspective of how we need to be thinking differently and more broadly and bring more people into our ecosystem and doing a lot more out here in the Valley and leveraging the talent that's here.
The entire ecosystem here.
Absolutely.
So what we've got here, though, is in some cases a failure to communicate, because as we saw, coders talking code, and guess what? Marketers also have their own code. And really what we're trying to do with these kind of conversations is help bridge that gap so that the money starts flowing both directions here, and the talent and the monies, the ideas start flowing both directions. And so, you were in big corporate holding company. How do things get funded then versus now? So if any of these guys say, hey, I've got an idea I'd like to bring to you, is it different now that it's private equity versus the big Clorox infrastructure?
Yes and no. I mean, I think we've got a set marketing budget that we have for the year, and so some of that is going to go to set programs, but we always leave a little bit aside to invest in new emerging technologies. I would say, for people targeting brands like me, I think one thing to remember is that there's a lot of different people out there trying to get in the door. I get probably 5 to 10 messages a day with race sponsorships and things like that. So think about ways to find an in. One possible way is through agencies. So if something was recommended by my PR firm as a great way to engage people at the NASCAR racetrack, as a way to engage fans, I'm a lot more likely to listen to that than if I get just an email that comes in. I think the other piece is, to start small. I think the book everyone's reading now is what the Lean Startup. Starting out with a small program where you can test and learn and get a lot of information in a short amount of time without a huge amount of resources and investment is a much better way to get your foot in the door than to propose some big program that takes a lot of time and resources. If the program works and it proves itself out, the extra money is going to flow to that very quickly, because everyone's trying to get growth and drive more sales. But there's a proving ground that you need first.
That's cool. It's kind of what the hackathon provided us, a very short term and a lower investment way of doing exactly that kind of experimentation. And would that kind of experimentation fly at big PepsiCo, or are you kind of a representation even of a commitment to doing things business not as usual?
I would actually agree with John. It's about trying something you've never tried before. Most of our brand managers are holding back just almost play money to a certain extent to be able to say, hey, there's something that I'd like to try that is still relevant to the brand, still fits my core target audience, but at the same time, I've got to stand out. I've got to be disruptive, because it can't be the same old media, the same old, social interaction. It's got to be a way that makes somebody step up and change their behavior. So most of what we do is looking for something that says, change that behavior to get me to buy one more can of Mountain Dew or Pepsi, or change that behavior to get my friend to be able to come into the franchise because of an event or a sponsorship or those kinds of things. So it's a lot of small things that start to bubble up from the bottom, and our brand managers are the ones who are actually trying to do that for a couple of reasons. One, in their minds, they'll get some airtime with certain senior leaders because they've done something that's never been done before, and then that's when you get the momentum to do something bigger the next year and bigger the next year.
All right, well, let's talk about the bigger bets that you guys actually have, Ned. I'm going to get to you in a minute with Red Beacon, but why don't we talk about how does something like a Yumly happen? It's such a creative, innovative way. I'm sure there was something cooked up deep within the halls of Unilever and perhaps PepsiCo as well with the nutrition push. It wasn't obvious that they would buy versus build or invest versus build. How does something like this take hold and get momentum?
It's probably the combination of two needs. One is you've got so many recipes that you have, and I'm talking on behalf of Unilever because they're a strategic investor in Physic Ventures, the fund that we invest in as well. So they've got a ton of recipes with sauces and spreads and so many foods in their portfolio, but at the same time, you've got consumers who are having a challenge in finding the right kinds of recipes, and they're hearing about it from friends through some social aspect, or they're going to a restaurant and saying, could I do that at home? But they have certain limitations. So their limitations may be gluten-free or salt, or they like a spicier kind of a flavor profile. So you've got a company over here who's got a lot of things to offer, especially from a spice and sauce standpoint, and you've got a technology over here in Yumly who's got a technology that is great, because with simple sliders you can basically say, no, I like spicy and I like creamy and these kinds of things. So marry the two, bring them together, and then kind of build on this thesis that the fund built, which was, for every meal you basically have to plan it, you have to procure it, you have to prepare it, and then you have to participate. So the planning is, it may be I'm on my way home and I need to pick up the stuff to make fajitas tonight.
Well, let me stop you there. So first of all, it fit with your investment thesis.
Yes.
It fit with the business objective.
Exactly.
Which a lot of times I think people lose sight of. So how did the deal come together?
The deal came together because if you, as a big brand, if you push it too hard, you're probably going to lose credibility. So those who are only Hellmann's users might go there, but anybody else who just wants to be able to use it.
So it's a little bit more ham-fisted if it was a brand approach. Also, there should be a recognition by agencies like ours and even brands that, we're not necessarily product people. We may be product people for the products we have, but I'm talking about hardcore development, production of assets and things that people like,
right.
Products, software, applications, etc. Partnering does feel like a better way to go. Let me throw that over to Fred then. So how did something like the Red Beacon come to fruition?
So for those of you who aren't familiar with Red Beacon, it's a reasonably new company based out here in the Valley, and all the things you're talking about, from lean startup, from great talent, great IP, they really fit in with what we're trying to do. And within the Home Depot, we have two types of customers. We have our pros and we have our consumers. Within the consumer segment, you think about it from a do-it-yourself and do-it-for-me. Within the pro segment, they're always looking for opportunities for more business. The consumers, they're always looking.
So, Fred, how did it happen?
Well, let me
break it down for us.
I'll break it down for you. What we looked at is we had an opportunity. We have consumers that are looking for business, pros that are looking for, our consumers looking to get a job done, pros looking for business. Identified the company out here in the Valley. It was a great fit for what we're trying to do strategically. Got together and got the deal done. So
my point is, though, that's just not an obvious path for a lot of companies. It must have taken someone who's either focused on investment, corp dev, maybe a CEO that's visionary like you were talking about earlier.
It's all through.
What's the mix?
It's the mix, really. It's corp dev fitting up to the business strategy, is getting our pros aligned with our consumers and helping them both. It's meeting a latent need that they both have. More business for the pros, getting a job done from the consumer.
So, tip two, in really 30 seconds or less, tip to the folks here in terms of how to pitch business at your shop, at your company. And I already heard from you, Fred, that it's aligned with our business objectives, help us sell more stuff. It's actually a pretty good mantra.
That's right.
John?
Yeah, I would say one thing to always remember is it's not just about brand awareness. You know, if you're targeting a brand like Armor All, STP, or Pepsi, you know, people have heard of those brands. They know what the brand is. You need to do something that's going to encourage a behavior change. What's going to get them to buy product? What's going to get them to learn about the product? What's going to get them to recommend that product to other people? That's really what brands are looking for, not just, you know, getting their logo out there.
Great, thanks.
Or I'd say, to add on top of that, he's exactly right, or to be able to get them to participate in the place where the brand is, to be a part of that consumer engagement. We don't want an event to be all about just the Pepsi event. We want it to be an enjoyable place where people will talk about it, and oh, by the way, Pepsi happens to be there, whether it's the Super Bowl or X Factor or, you know, a NASCAR race or something like that. That way, they assign and connect so much more with an enjoyable outcome in the brand, and now all of a sudden that brand becomes their ambassador to other enjoyable things.
And you guys have been great ambassadors for brands here. Thank you very much for joining me. Give us a hand here for this panel. Thank you. Thanks, guys. Appreciate it.
Okay, just before break, we have one last announcement. Danielle, would you please come on out? Oh, here you go.
Thank you. Good afternoon. My name is Heather Peach, and I am co-founder of Grandma Vani's Cookies, and my business partner, Danimoto, is also here today. And we want to thank Mark and Blue Run Ventures for letting us say a few words to you today. So I have a question for you. How many of you as leaders are challenged every day with finding and keeping good talent in the Bay Area? It's a hard task that's very competitive, and you need a hook and some type of differentiator. And when I was at Salesforce.com in '99, we would rack our brains trying to figure out how we would attract, retain, and motivate employees. And what we were trying to figure out is how to get these heavy hitters from Oracle, Siebel, Sybase, PeopleSoft, which probably a lot of you don't remember those companies. I guess we did a good job. So regardless, what we found is that providing perks such as treats was the way to go. We weren't like Facebook, Twitter, Google that provided breakfast, lunch, and dinner. Not a lot of us can be like that. But we can invest in our employees with non-standard benefits like freshly baked cookies that contribute to the culture that attracts and retains good talent. SAS, or SAS, as my husband says I should call it, is the top company on CNN Money's best companies to work for. And they say that perks made them #1. And employees feel regarded, seen, attended to, and cared for. Cookie and dessert breaks are a few of the non-standard perks that make work a richer experience. There have been studies that show that the quickest way to alter mood or emotions is by scent, and that cookies are in the top of that list. The atmosphere after these breaks of teamwork and camaraderie fosters creativity and keeps employees committed to their work. So that is why Grandma Vani's Cookies has recently launched a new corporate service offering that provides weekly delivery of freshly baked cookies into the offices. Our whole vision is to supply Silicon Valley fresh cookies weekly. So whether it's a client meeting, employee birthday, or weekly deliveries, we'd love to help. Today we have some of our cookies for you to try at the break right outside the door, and we have a special offer for you too. When you sign up for at least a 3-month contract, we'll give you 10% off. So text us, tweet us, Facebook us, or call us, or send us an email and mention Social Loco. The best part of all of this is that 10% of our profits will be donated to the Alzheimer's Association, a cause that is near and dear to our hearts. So you can make a difference in the fight against Alzheimer's just by ordering cookies. If you get a chance to enjoy these cookies, please let us know what you think by tweeting us at our Twitter handle @GrandmaVani's. We'd love to hear from you. Thank you for your time today.
Wonderful. So we're going to break. It's a half-hour break. Please be back here at 3:30. We have Sarah Lacey from Pano Daily coming out on stage, and then we have a couple more sessions, and then we have a huge cocktail party as well as the piñata. See you soon.